The mansion was big, shining, and quiet. Everything inside was made of glass, gold, or glowing stone. But there was no laughter, no sound of joy. Only the soft humming of machines and the quiet breathing of one young girl lying in a floating chair. Her name was Aurelia. She was 14, with silver skin and long, soft hair like moonlight. Her eyes were bright purple, full of dreams, but her legs had not moved in 5 long years. Her mother, Valaya, was one of the richest women in the galaxy. She owned ships, cities, and stars. People bowed to her, feared her, praised her, but none of her power could fix her daughter, and that truth broke her heart every single day. Every morning, Valaya stood by the window. Holding a cup of warm blue juice, she looked at the garden, but her eyes were empty. Behind her, Aurelia lay silent in the hover chair. Staring at the ceiling, machines blinked beside her, soft lights checking her breath, her heartbeat, her nerves. But nothing changed. They had tried everything. Doctors from 5 planets, machines from the future. Even alien medicine with singing stones, nothing worked. The last doctor said coldly, "The nerve path is gone. She will never walk again." That night, Valaya broke a glass in her hand and cried in silence. Alone then, one day. Something strange arrived. Not a ship, not a robot, just a letter. Old-fashioned, made of paper. With dirt on the edges, it had no seal, no name. Only words written in plain black ink. "There is still a way, if you can believe." Jacob, human healer. Valaya almost threw it away. But Aurelia spoke for the first time in weeks, her voice soft like the wind. "Mom, I want to try." Valaya stared at her daughter, shocked. She had not heard her speak with hope in years. "Sweetheart, this is a joke, a trick. He's not a doctor," she said. But Aurelia only looked at her and whispered, "Please." Something in Valaya cracked. She had power, she had money, but she had nothing to lose. So she gave the order, "Prepare the ship." The servants moved quickly, surprised by her command. Valaya looked at her daughter, pale and still in the chair. She knelt beside her and touched her hand. "If this human hurts you, I will destroy him," she said softly. Aurelia smiled a little. The first smile in years. "I believe in him." I don't know why. The journey took 2 days. They traveled past glowing stars, asteroid fields, and broken satellites. Finally, they reached a dusty moon with no name. There was only one building, a small wooden house surrounded by scrap and rusted metal. "Is this a joke?" Valaya hissed as she stepped out of her ship. The wind was dry. The air smelled like oil. Then a man walked out, wearing old gloves and a simple brown coat. He looked like a worker, not a healer, not a savior. His name was Jacob. He didn't bow, didn't smile. He looked at Aurelia and said, "Hello, young one." His voice was soft, honest, warm. Valaya frowned. "Are you the one who sent the letter?" "I am," he said, wiping his hands on a cloth. "And you think you can fix her?" Valaya snapped. "I don't fix people," Jacob said. "I help them find the path again." Valaya was ready to leave. But Aurelia looked at Jacob and said, "I want to try." The mother hesitated, then gave a slow nod. They moved the chair inside Jacob's house. It was small, full of strange machines. Wires, metal limbs, old tools, and pictures of humans walking beside aliens. Jacob sat near Aurelia and began asking questions. "Do you feel this?" He tapped her toe. "No," she whispered. "Do you dream of walking?" He asked. "Yes," she said with shining eyes. "Then we have a chance," he said, smiling. Valaya stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching like a hawk. She didn't trust him, not yet, but in that quiet, dusty room, something felt different. Something warm, something real, and for the first time in a long time, a spark of hope lit up in the cold mansion of Valaya's heart. The wind blew softly around the small wooden house. Inside, everything was old but clean. Metal limbs hung from the walls. Glowing tools sat on shelves. And a smell of oil and dust filled the air. Valaya hated it. She stood with her arms folded, her rich silver robe brushing the floor. This place was nothing like her mansion. No gold, no servants, no shining light, just dirt, machines, and one quiet human. Jacob didn't care. He sat on a stool, adjusting a device near Aurelia's feet. His hands were rough, dirty, full of scars, but they moved gently, carefully, like they remembered pain and healing. Aurelia watched him with calm eyes. She didn't care about the dirt. For the first time in years, someone was treating her like a person, not a broken thing. Jacob didn't talk much. But when he did, his words were kind. "I need to understand her body before I can help," he said. Valaya stepped closer, her voice sharp. "She has had scans from the best hospitals in the galaxy. You are wasting time." Jacob looked up, not angry, just patient. "Machines see numbers, not souls." He said, "Your daughter is more than broken nerves." Valaya narrowed her eyes. She didn't like being told she was wrong, but Aurelia spoke softly. "Let him try, please." And that was the only voice Valaya listened to. Jacob began a test. He placed small sensors on Aurelia's neck, back, and hips. Then he pressed buttons on a strange round device lit up with soft blue light. Waves of energy moved across her skin. Aurelia gasped. "It tickles." Jacob smiled. "Good. That means something's alive in there." Valaya watched carefully. Her daughter's toes moved just slightly, not a lot, but enough to make her breath catch. "Was that real?" she asked. Jacob nodded. "Yes, it's very small, but it's there." That night, they stayed in a small guest room in Jacob's home. Valaya sat on the bed, still wearing her rich clothes, staring at the wall. She didn't understand this man. He had no title, no degree, no medals. Yet her daughter responded to him in ways she never had with any doctor. How was this possible? In the next room, Jacob worked late. He sketched plans on a glowing pad, drawings of a leg brace powered by neural energy. He wrote notes with strange codes, using parts from broken machines. He wasn't a scientist, but he was something better, someone who cared, someone who believed. Aurelia, lying in her chair, looked at the drawings. "Did you make all of this yourself?" she asked. Jacob nodded. "When I was in the war, we had no doctors, only pain and lost limbs. I learned to build from scrap, to give people a second chance." "Did it always work?" she asked. "No," he said. "But when it did, it was magic." The next morning, Valaya found her daughter laughing. Jacob had connected a simple leg brace to Aurelia's upper thigh. She couldn't move it yet, but the brace was giving her muscles a small electrical pulse. Her leg twitched, and Aurelia giggled. It moved again. Valaya's heart jumped. She walked over and placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Don't understand how this is working," she whispered. Jacob turned to her, wiping his hands. "It's not just science, it's trust, belief, and connection." Valaya said nothing, but she didn't argue. Instead, she sat down beside her daughter for the first time in years. She brushed Aurelia's hair gently, something she hadn't done since before the accident. Her fingers shook, but her heart was quiet. Later that day, Jacob asked Valaya to help with a new test. "Me?" she asked, surprised. "Yes, Aurelia needs someone she trusts to guide her movement." Valaya hesitated, then stepped forward. She held her daughter's hands while Jacob connected the brace. "Try to push down, slowly," Jacob said. Aurelia focused, and her foot pressed gently against the ground. Just a little, just a second, but it happened. Valaya gasped, tears filling her eyes. "My baby," she whispered. "You did it?" Aurelia smiled. "We did it." That night, Valaya sat with Jacob under the stars. She looked at him for a long time. "You're not what I expected," she said. Jacob looked up at the sky. "Neither is your daughter." They sat in silence for a while. Then Valea said, "If this works, I'll owe you everything." Jacob shook his head. "I don't want payment. I want to see her walk." And in that quiet moment, something changed, not just in Aurelia's legs, but in the heart of a mother. She stopped being a millionaire for a moment and simply became a mom. The sun rose slowly over the dusty moon. Its light passed through the broken glass windows of Jacob's workshop. It touched metal tools, scattered wires, and half-finished machines. But in the center of the room stood something new, a strange brace made of metal, cloth, and soft pulses of light. Jacob worked on it with focused hands. He tightened wires, checked connections, and tested the tiny power cells. His fingers were quick but careful, like he had done this many times before. Not with rich tools, but with heart, with instinct, with hope. Aurelia sat nearby, watching him. Her hover chair hummed quietly, but her eyes were wide with wonder. "This is for me?" she asked. Jacob nodded. "Yes, it's the first step." Lighterly, Valea entered the room, still dressed in dark silk, but her expression softer than before. She had watched her daughter move her foot last night. Now, she couldn't stop thinking about it. It wasn't a dream, it was real. "What does it do?" Valea asked, pointing at the brace. Jacob explained, "It's a hybrid device. Uses your daughter's upper nerve signals, even if weak, and translates them into motion support. If she thinks about walking, this brace will help carry that thought to her legs." Valea didn't fully understand, but she didn't interrupt, because for the first time in years, something was working. Jacob helped lift Aurelia from the hover chair and strapped the brace around her right leg. It clicked into place, glowing. Gently, Aurelia held her breath as Jacob turned on the control node. A soft hum filled the room, and tiny sparks ran along the metal lines. "Now, I want you to think about standing." "Ash," Jacob said softly. Aurelia closed her eyes. She imagined pushing down with her foot, lifting herself. Nothing happened for a second, then her foot shifted. Valea gasped. Jacob stayed calm. "That's it. Do it again." Aurelia tried again, and this time her leg moved just a few inches, but clearly, tears filled her eyes. "It's working." The workshop filled with silence. But it was the kind of silence filled with magic. Valea walked over and knelt beside her daughter. She touched the brace and whispered, "You moved. You really moved." Jacob smiled. "Now we train, slowly, every day, every muscle, from mom." That moment, everything changed. Each morning, Aurelia woke up early, ready to try again. Jacob adjusted the brace daily, added support to the left leg too. He taught her exercises, lifting her knees, shifting her weight, balancing. Valea stayed close. She helped her daughter sit, held her hand, even brought water and towels. She wasn't used to doing things herself. But now, she didn't want to leave. She was no longer a rich woman waiting for results. She was part of the healing. One afternoon, as the sun fell low, Jacob introduced a balance frame. It was a simple wooden rail built from scrap. He placed it in the center of the room and looked at Aurelia. "You're ready?" he said. Aurelia's hands shook, but she nodded. Valea stood on one side, Jacob on the other. They helped her up from the chair and placed her hands on the wooden rail. "Now shift your weight." "Just like we practiced," Jacob said. Aurelia took a deep breath. She pushed her right foot forward. Just a small step, but it was her own. Then the left one moved, slow but sure. She was walking one step, then another, her brace glowing softly with each move. Valea covered her mouth, tears running down her face. "My baby girl," she whispered. "You're walking," Aurelia smiled, her whole face glowing. "I'm really doing it," she said. Jacob nodded. Proudly, "Yes, you are." They practiced for hours. Fall, stand again, step, rest, try once more. Every small success made them stronger. The workshop became more than a place of tools. It became a place of miracles. One evening, while fixing the brace's cooling node, Jacob showed Aurelia a photo. It was of a human soldier missing both legs, smiling beside a young alien girl with wings. She was like you, Jacob said. She believed she'd never fly again, but she did. Aurelia touched the photo. Gently. I want to help others too, she said softly. You will. Jacob replied, one step at a time. That night, Valaya sat outside, watching the stars. Jacob sat beside her, wiping oil from his hands. You've changed, he said. She looked at him, surprised. How? You smile now, he said. Valaya didn't answer, but she smiled again. In the darkness of that small moon, a girl who was once trapped in silence had taken her first steps, not in a hospital, not with fancy machines, but in a dusty workshop. Guided by rough human hands, a stubborn heart, and a mother who finally learned to hope again. Asteris's rain fell quietly on the roof of Jacob's small house. Straws tapped against the glass, while warm light glowed inside the workshop. Aurelia was standing. Again, holding the wooden rail, sweat on her forehead, but joy in her eyes. Each day her steps grew stronger, steadier, more real. Valaya stood nearby, holding a towel, proud but cautious. She didn't say it aloud, but deep in her heart, she was beginning to believe. Jacob tightened a strap on the brace and smiled. You've come far in just 10 days, he said. Aurelia giggled. Soon I'll run circles around you. Jacob laughed. I'd like to see that. Valaya smiled quietly, but behind her eyes. She was always watching, always waiting for something to go wrong. She wasn't wrong to worry. Because far above the little moon, in the orbiting dark, a silent drone hovered, its lenses zoomed. In capturing images of Valaya, her daughter, and the human, back on a distant planet. In a city of crystal towers and sky trains, a sharp-eyed man watched the feed, Director Orvan, a cold executive from the rival medical corporation Natech Biosystems. He stared at the footage with a smile. So, the great Valaya disappears. And now we know why, he whispered. Her crippled daughter is walking with a human engineer and no license. He turned to his assistant. Leak it to the media. And quietly send someone to pay the human a visit. Back on the moon, Valaya received a strange call. Her personal security AI buzzed in her earpiece. Unauthorized activity detected. Tracking drone above current coordinates. She froze, then turned to Jacob. We've been found, she whispered. Jacob didn't look surprised. I figured they'd come sooner or later. Valaya paced the room, anger and fear mixing in her voice. If this goes public, they'll twist everything. They'll say I endangered my daughter. Aurelia looked scared. Will they take me away? Jacob kneeled beside her. No one's taking you. Not while I'm here, but hours later. A ship landed nearby quiet, black, with no lights. From it stepped a single man dressed in smooth gray armor, face hidden behind a silver visor. He walked straight toward Jacob's workshop, hands empty but full of threat. Jacob opened the door before the man could knock. You lost, he asked, calm but firm. The man stepped inside without asking. I'm just here to talk, he said. Valaya stood in front of her daughter, her voice sharp. Who sent you? The man removed his visor. Was a face Valaya recognized. Orvan's top enforcer. I'm here to warn you, he said. Your actions have drawn attention. Big attention. Jacob crossed his arms and the man looked at Aurelia, who stared back with strength. There's going to be an investigation. The media is spinning stories already. They're saying your daughter is being experimented on by an unlicensed human. They're calling this place a danger zone. Valaya's hands shook. They'll never understand. She said quietly. The man shrugged. Maybe not, But public fear moves fast, and corporations faster. He stepped closer. But if you walk away now, if you let Naytek handle the case wheel, make sure the media forgets. Jacob's face hardened, and what happens to her? The man smiled coldly. She'll become a product, a case study, a test subject. Valaya stepped forward, her voice like fire. Get out. The man didn't flinch. Think carefully. This is your last chance. Valaya raised her hand. From her bracelet, a hidden pulse weapon activated. I said, get out. The man looked at Jacob, then at Aurelia, and left without another word. The moment he was gone, Aurelia broke into tears. I don't want to be a case study. I want to walk like everyone else. Jacob hugged her gently. You're not a subject. You're a miracle. That night, the workshop was quiet. But tension filled the air like storm clouds. Valaya looked at Jacob across the table. They won't stop, she said. No, Jacob replied, but neither will we. Outside, the rain stopped. The stars returned, shining softly over the little house. Inside, a girl who could barely move weeks ago now stood with the help of love and effort. Not because of money, not because of machines, but because someone believed in her. And she began to believe in herself. The storm wasn't over, not yet, but they were ready, because now they were more than strangers. They were a team. The morning was cold and quiet. Gray clouds covered the sky above Jacob's small house. Inside, the workshop was still. No machines were running, no tools buzzing. Only the soft sound of Aurelia's breathing and the gentle hum of her brace. She sat alone on the edge of her bed, hands gripping the wooden rail beside her. Her legs were strapped into the neural brace Jacob had built. She had walked 6 steps yesterday, 6 steps that made her cry with joy. But today, something felt different. Her mother Valaya was still sleeping in the next room. Jacob was outside repairing the power lines after last night's short storm. Aurelia looked at the wooden rail, then at the floor. Her heart beat fast. I can do this alone, she thought. She took a deep breath and pulled herself up. Her legs shook, but they held. The brace clicked and hissed with soft light, supporting her weight. She took 1 step forward, then another. But the floor was slippery from a leak in the roof. Her foot slid, her body twisted. And before she could catch herself, she fell. The sound echoed through the workshop. A sharp thud, followed by silence. Jacob rushed in moments later, finding her on the floor, her eyes wide with pain. Valaya ran behind him, her face pale. Aurelia. Valaya screamed, dropping to her knees. Aurelia winced. I tried to walk. Jacob carefully checked her leg, his fingers steady but quick. No bones broken, he said. Just a hard hit. Valaya hugged her daughter tightly. Her voice shaking. You scared me, she whispered. Aurelia blinked. Back tears. I just wanted to surprise you. I wanted to walk to you without help. Jacob helped lift her gently onto the bed. He placed ice packs on her knees and turned down the brace's power. You're brave, he said, but even the strongest legs need time to grow. Aurelia looked down, ashamed. I failed, she whispered. Jacob shook his head. No. Falling doesn't mean failing. It means you're moving forward. Valaya sat beside her daughter, brushing her hair gently. I didn't believe at first, she said softly. But now I do. And I'd rather see you fall trying than watch you fade in silence. For the rest of the day, Aurelia stayed in bed, resting her legs. Jacob gave her a small energy stim to help with muscle pain. Valaya stayed close, reading to her from a book they used to love when she was a child. As night came, the workshop felt warm again. Aurelia looked at her brace, now resting on a table nearby. She reached for Jacob's hand. Will I ever walk without it? Jacob looked into her eyes. Yes, but only if you keep getting up after you fall. That night, Aurelia dreamed, not of falling, but of running through glowing fields. Laughing, she woke up smiling. She wasn't broken anymore. She was healing. The next morning, Jacob brought something new. It was a second bracelighter. Faster, shaped with smooth curves. "I've improved the design," he said. "Less support. More control from you." Aurelia took it slowly. Strapping it to her leg, she stood again. This time with her mother holding her arm, one deep breath, and she stepped forward. No stumble, no slide, just strength. Valaya couldn't stop smiling. Jacob nodded. "You're doing it," Aurelia whispered. "I'm doing it." The news hadn't stopped outside. More stories. More lies. But inside the small house, something real was happening. Step by step, breath by breath. Later that day, Jacob invited Aurelia outside. The sun was finally shining. Birds flew overhead. And soft wind touched her face. "This is your next challenge," he said, pointing to the soft dirt path near the house. No rail, no walls, just earth. Valaya stepped beside her. Holding her hand, "We're with you," she said. Aurelia took the first step. The brace responded perfectly. Her leg moved steady. Then another step, and another. She walked 5 full meters before stopping. She turned, smiling, eyes shining with tears. "I walked outside," she said. Valaya ran to hug her, laughing and crying at the same time. Jacob stayed back, arms crossed, a small smile on his face. "She's not just walking," he whispered. "She's flying." That evening, around a small table, the three of them shared warm food and soft music. Aurelia rested her legs on a pillow. But her smile never faded. Valaya looked at Jacob. "I was wrong about humans," she said. Jacob laughed gently. "You weren't wrong, you just hadn't met the right one." And for the first time in her life, Valaya raised her glass and said something she had never said to anyone outside her own species. "Thank you, human." The stars were bright. That night, but inside Jacob's house, no one was looking at the sky. All eyes were on the small screen in the corner of the room. It showed a news anchor with golden eyes and a sharp voice. She pointed at a glowing image behind her. Valaya, Jacob, and Aurelia, walking. "This footage has now been confirmed," she said. "Valaya's paralyzed daughter is walking again with the help of an unlicensed human." Aurelia looked away, her heart pounding. Valaya stood behind her, arms crossed, her jaw tight. Jacob simply sat, calm as always, his eyes steady. "They make it sound like a crime," Aurelia whispered. "It's not," Jacob said softly. "It's a miracle, but they don't care about miracles," Valaya added. "They care about control." Suddenly, the screen changed. The anchor announced, "Valaya will make a public statement tomorrow from her private estate on Nexera." Prime Aurelia looked up, shocked. "You're going back?" Valaya nodded. "Yes, and you're coming with me." Aurelia froze. "The press will be there. The cameras, the critics," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm not ready for that." Jacob kneeled beside her. "Yes, you are," he said. "You've already done the hardest part. You've stood up." The next morning, a sleek black ship arrived outside the house. Valaya had called in her old security team. They scanned the area, set up shields, and whispered into comms. But all eyes were on Aurelia as she stepped out of the house on her own 2 feet. She wore a simple blue robe and walked slowly but proudly. Her new brace was smaller, now almost invisible beneath her clothing. Jacob had adjusted it for public use. "Just think, and it will follow," he had told her. Valaya helped her into the ship, holding her hand gently. The inside was filled with soft lights and quiet music. But Aurelia didn't relax. Her hands trembled. "What if they laugh at me?" she asked. "They won't," Valaya said. "And if they do," Jacob added, with a wink, "trip them with your new legs." Aurelia giggled, the fear fading just a little when the ship landed on Nexera Prime. A wave of noise hit them, thousands. Of reporters stood behind barriers, drones floated overhead. Flashing lights blinking like stars. Crowds shouted questions. Is it true? Did the human modify her brain? Is this safe? Security surrounded them, but Valaya raised a hand. Let them see her, she said. Aurelia stepped out of the ship, her heart racing, cameras zoomed in as she took one step, then another on her own. The crowd went silent, only the soft sound of her brace humming could be heard. Then, a whisper started in the crowd. She's walking. She's really walking. Is this real? Valaya led her to a stage already set up with microphones and a shining blue backdrop. Jacob stayed behind, arms folded, quiet and proud. Valaya walked up first, her voice strong. My daughter was told she would never walk again. She was told by the greatest doctors, the smartest minds, that hope was useless. And then, a human showed us something different. She turned and gestured. Aurelia stepped forward, slowly. One foot in front of the other, her voice was soft, but steady. He didn't promise to fix me, she said. He just believed in me, and when someone believes in you, she added, her voice shaking slightly, you start to believe in yourself too. The crowd was quiet. No one laughed. No one mocked. Some reporters lowered their cameras, eyes wide. A few even wiped away tears. Aurelia looked out at the crowd. For 5 years, I was a prisoner. Inside my own body, she said. I thought walking again was impossible. But now I know impossible just means no one has tried hard enough. The press conference ended in silence, not because they had no questions, but because they were stunned. Valaya helped Aurelia off the stage, and as they walked back toward the ship, the crowd suddenly broke into applause. Jacob waited inside. Standing near the door as Aurelia entered, he smiled and said, You stole the show. I was shaking the whole time, she said, laughing. You still walked, Jacob replied. And that was enough to shake the galaxy. Later that evening, inside the ship, Valaya looked at Jacob. I know I've said thank you before, she said, but this time I want to do more. Jacob raised an eyebrow. I want to build a place where others like her can come. A center not owned by corporations, not controlled by greed, just healing and hope. Jacob leaned back in his chair. Sounds like a good place, he said. Then help me build it. Valaya said. Jacob thought for a moment, then nodded. All right, but only if I get to name it. They all laughed. And as the ship flew across the stars, one girl walked freely inside it. No longer a patient, no longer a secret, but a symbol of what happens when someone refuses to give up. The new building stood on the edge of the green valley. It was made of smooth stone, silver glass, and soft golden light. There were no guards, no sharp logos, no giant signs, just a single name carved into the wall by hand. The Walk Again. Center, it was Aurelia who chose the name, and Jacob who carved the words himself. Behind that wall were open rooms, warm beds, and machines made from care, not profit. And waiting inside were children from every world, some blind, some with broken bones, some who had never walked at all. Valaya stood in the center of the lobby, her arms crossed softly. She wasn't dressed like a millionaire today. No jewels, no crown, no heavy robe, just a simple white dress and a peaceful smile. Reporters still followed her from time to time. But today, they stood back, watching in silence as the doors opened wide. Aurelia stepped out first, walking slowly but with strength. She no longer needed the brace every day. Jacob walked beside her, carrying a small toolkit. Just in case, the crowd outside watched with curiosity and hope. Alien mothers held there. Children close, fathers whispered prayers in strange languages, and children with pale faces looked up with wide eyes. Aurelia spoke into the small mic attached to her collar. This place is for the forgotten, she said, for the ones the doctors gave up on, for the ones who were told to accept silence. She paused, looking out over the crowd. I was one of them, she continued. I was told my legs were gone forever, but a human who didn't care about titles or money changed that. She looked back at Jacob, who gave her a quiet nod. This place will carry that hope to others, she said. Not through machines alone, but through love, belief, and hands that never stop trying. Valaya stepped forward, holding a small, glowing device in her hands. She pressed a button and a large hologram bloomed in the air. It showed children walking, laughing, building things, dancing, all wearing different kinds of braces, some built by Jacob, some made by new engineers trained at the center. Valaya spoke slowly. My daughter is the reason this place exists. She said, but it is Jacob who taught me that healing has no price. And today, I give this center to the galaxy not as a business, but as a gift. A round of applause echoed through the valley. Soft and full of emotion, later that evening. Inside the center's garden, Jacob sat alone on a bench. The sky above was filled with stars, and wind moved gently through the glowing leaves. He looked up and sighed. He never wanted fame, never wanted attention, only peace, only purpose. Aurelia walked up behind him. No brace now, just a cane for balance. You okay? Okay? She asked. Jacob nodded, just thinking, about what? How far you've come, he said, smiling. Aurelia sat beside him. I couldn't have done it without you. He looked at her and said, you did the hardest part, getting up after you fell. Valaya joined them a few minutes later. Holding something in her hand, it was a small box, wrapped in soft green cloth. She gave it to Jacob. What's this? He asked. A thank you, she said. Jacob opened the box and inside was a small crystal with Aurelia's childhood drawing inside it. The image was simple, hand-drawn, a girl standing tall beside a human with messy hair. Jacob smiled. I remember this drawing, Aurelia said shyly. I made it the night after my first real step, Valaya added softly. I had it preserved in memory stone, so no matter what happens in the future, you'll always have proof of what you gave us. Jacob looked at the crystal for a long moment, then nodded. Thank you, he said. His voice quiet, for everything, as the stars turned above them. Something peaceful settled into the valley. The Walk Again Center opened its doors. The next day, and the first child who entered was a blind boy from the burning sands of Zener. His name was Kale, and he held a broken walking stick. Jacob greeted him with a smile. Let's fix that stick, he said, and maybe a little more. The center grew, not as a business, but as a place of hope. Engineers from every corner of the galaxy came to learn. Mothers came with children in their arms, and no one was turned away. Aurelia, now a young woman, walked the halls every day, helping others take their first steps, just like Jacob helped her. Valaya funded it all, but not for profit. For once, her riches meant something deeper, and in her heart, she knew this was her true legacy, not buildings, not power, but a daughter who walked again, and the human who made it possible.